today's episode, we're joined once again by Rutger Bruining, the founder of Story Terrace, to explore the power of preserving memories through storytelling. We've spoken with Rutger before, and this time we're diving even deeper into why recording life stories matter, not just for us, but for generations to come.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Lesley Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Lesley. Now, if you're here for the very first time today, or you've been listening in for ages, we want to say a huge thank you. And we have a little favour to ask.
If you like what you hear, be sure to hit that follow or subscribe button, share us with your friends, or leave us a review. It makes a huge difference to us.
Oh, so welcome, Rutger. It's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming back onto the podcast. We absolutely loved it the last time. You know, I'm a big Story Terrace fan, and we know you've got exciting news for us. But really, I just wanted a deeper conversation, really, about storytelling. It's a big deal to us here at the Declutter Hub, preserving those memories that are there. And I think one of the things when you're going through a decluttering journey is that fear of losing that sentimentality and those memories that you have amassed over the years. So I wanted to sort of dive in, and you are a master at that at Story Terrace. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what Story Terrace is, and then we'll dive in a little deeper.
Yes. So I'm the founder of Story Terrace. I started the company 10 years ago. By now we have recorded 4,000 stories of people of all walks of life, mainly in the English-speaking world. And we write books of very different lengths, work with around 600 different writers, designers and editors to make that process really seamless for people. The reason I started the company is because I regretted not recording my grandparents' stories. I spent a lot of time with them when I grew up. My mom worked as an academic from home. I was quite noisy, sporty type in those days. And I think she needed to think more than hearing balls against the house, that kind of stuff. So she sent me to my grandparents. My grandfather was a great storyteller. And after he passed away, I regretted recording those stories. My grandmother, she spoke less about growing up, and I regret not asking her as many questions as I should have had. So two very different regrets, which made me think a lot about why we don't record the stories of the people we care about, why I didn't record my own stories as I traveled, etc., which I wish I had done. And that's really why I've been interested in sort of the reasons for and the why and the how of capturing people's stories.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting because I think we first spoke. So you came on the podcast before, and we've just had a look, haven't we? Rutger, and it's episode 215. So do go back and listen to that, and you can get a little bit more insight from Rutger. But that's 3 years ago. So a lot's happened in that 3 years for me personally, for the Declutter Hub. A lot of it around books, actually. So I remember when we first spoke, I had found Story Terrace, and I had jumped straight in to go to write or to help with a memoir from my dad and my father-in-law, because I thought, what a wonderful, exactly the reason you're saying, Rutger, which is I just don't want their story to go, untold in future generations, really. So it was for the family. So I think when we last spoke, my dad and my father-in-law were just going through the stages. So basically what happens is that they work with a writer. So they just tell their story, the writer writes it for them, and then there's an editing process, as you would expect. There's pictures, and you get a book at the end of it, and it's absolutely wonderful, so enriching. And both of them loved it. They loved the outcome of it. Did they love everything about it? I think it really took them out of their comfort zone because they're both in their 80s, and it's something that they had not really kind of worked with before. So there's a nervousness with that. But once they got over that initial kind of, worry, and are people going to judge me, and my story's not interesting enough, all of those kind of things.
Yes,
I think they bedded in and
common
really.
sentences.
Yeah, I know, because it's a big leap, isn't it? It's a big leap.
Yes, I think everyone going into it, and some people more than others, they feel like, oh, do I want to talk about these things or not? Am I going to get along with the person asking the questions? Are they going to understand me? So it's very natural to feel like that. And because it is ultimately an important document in someone's life, and people want to do it really well when they embark on the journey to write their book and to print it on paper for generations to come, it is very understandable that it is a little bit nerve-wracking. The good thing is, because we work with so many writers, we try to match people with someone that understands them well and that they feel really comfortable with. And as soon as that conversation starts, from what I've heard in my experience, it's as little as 15 minutes. Those ideas that can be quite strong, and people can be quite nervous in the days leading up to that first conversation, they go away. And it becomes sometimes still, there are positive memories and maybe some negative memories, but overall, people find it a really, really unique and rewarding experience just to talk in depth about their life.
I think, you know what, Rutger, I think, I mean, everybody that's listening to this podcast will know, I mentioned it to you just before we came on, that Ingrid and I wrote a book as well, which came out last year. So we've spent the last, well, probably 18 months really knee deep in writing and editing and things like that. And there's something very special. It's something, people always talk about, oh, have you got a book in you and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's such a daunting prospect to write. Ours was not a memoir, obviously. Ours was a decluttering book, but it's still trying to get everything out there that you want to say to the world in a sort of entertaining and interesting and informative way in our instance. So I loved it. Whether I do it again is a whole another matter, but that's a different thing. But yeah, so we wrote a book as well, and I think it started because I was quite heavily involved with my dad and my father-in-law, just in helping them along, because I think obviously at the editing stage they need to sort of sign it off, and I think there were things that I was like, we should probably change that, whereas they probably wouldn't have said anything. Do you know what I mean? And so it was quite interesting. So I think that's what got me started and thinking, do you know what? If we can get involved in that, then perhaps we can write our own book, which we did. So, and the other interesting thing that I kind of a couple of weeks ago, one of the things, we have a community of people who love sentimentality, stories, stuff, and a lot of people attach, great importance to the stuff. And so we're all about the memories. And so we asked in our Facebook groups, we've got thousands and thousands of people in our Facebook group, if you were to write a book, what would the topic be? And I just remembered this morning before we came on, I was like, oh, I should pull that out and have a quick look. And there was loads and loads of different things. So Carol said she would like to write a memoir of her years as a nurse. Melody said that she wanted to write short stories about her family's life. Angela said she wanted to write something about her insights from her time as a cleaner. Ben wanted to write about letting go of the past through decluttering. And Trisha wanted to write Life, Love and Living. She's got a title as well. Life, Love and Living, the memoir of a wise woman.
Some people never get to a title, so that's good.
I know, exactly. So yeah, Trisha's got a title as well. So that people want to talk about their stuff, don't they? So tell me, Rutger, what kinds of books are people writing, and which ones that have? I mean, you've had 4,000 books, and so I'm sure they're all absolutely amazing. But have you just got a couple that have really resonated with you that you'd like to share with us?
Yes, of course. I mean, more than a couple, but I know there's limitations, so we can stick to a couple, because everyone has a passion and sort of an insight from their life, and something that they have to share, that when they are speaking to people that they meet or that they know well, that is a topic that interests people. So everyone has a book in that sense. Everyone has a unique life. Two recent books which really resonated with me, maybe starting with the first one, because I think it's a fantastic title, is a book called White Coat, Blue Gown, which is about a doctor, an emergency room doctor, who finds herself being diagnosed with a life-threatening disease, and basically moving from one side of the hospital to the other side, and blogging about that experience in a Facebook group, and sadly, passing away with her sisters, picking up the blog and the writing and turning that into a book. This is a Canadian book, which very quickly in Canada reached the top of the charts for Memoirs, which was very exciting to see because it's a really beautiful story, which I think was really important to be told. And there are lots of important stories for just families, but I think this book resonated so well with a larger audience that I'm very happy that the sisters decided to really share that story as widely as possible.
Yeah, it's a story that needed to be told, isn't it? And how lovely for them that they were able to bring her words to life in a different way than the blog, and then take it out there into the wider world. So that's lovely, yeah. And I think a lot of our members certainly will have experiences of things like that as well, and not the same, but that, like you say, everybody's life is unique. And I remember that with my dad and my father-in-law. They were very kind of like, who would be interested in my life? And then there are certain elements of it, and you're like, if we'd not got that book, we would never have known that thing, because,
I was going to ask you, did you discover anything new?
Yeah, loads of stuff.
It's my favorite question to ask people who are really close to someone, and still that happens.
Exactly. And I think, and it was interesting to work out what was important to them. So there were lots of stories that we had heard throughout the years, but they didn't make it into their book. Do you know what I mean? So there were other things that were important to them. And so, it was sort of preserving history. I think there was a big focus definitely on their earlier life rather than their later life, which was quite interesting. Both of them probably kind of went up to 40, 50. But both of them also lost their wives in their 50s. So I wonder whether that, that sort of 0 to 50 then represented a happier time perhaps in their lives. And so it's something that you think about. So it was quite interesting. So that was obviously interesting for me, and it's just nice to get more insight than you've had before, really, about somebody. So, are there any other books that you've had that have resonated with you, Rutger?
Yeah, and another book which is also a very recent book, which actually plays in a similar time frame. It's called What Music Means to Me by Catherine Sahadevan, and Catherine moved when she was 17 from Ireland to England, and she embarked on a journey in her life where she gained different experiences. She always loved music, but she never studied music. She became a carer for elderly, and she had different roles. Initially, she was learning how to be a carer, then she became a manager, and then she became responsible for activities. And because she loved music so much, she sings like she's on MTV, apparently, when she is mopping the floor. She has this genuine passion which just comes out throughout her life. And she was talking to one of the residents about having been in a choir for a bit, and that created the idea, basically, to start a choir in this elderly home where lots of people have dementia. And from there, she built a choir where initially there was a lot of, everyone thought it was a good idea, but no one really wanted to be the first person to sing, type thing. But with her enthusiasm and bringing people together, it became a very big success. People actually who had, with dementia, started to remembering the songs that they started repeating. And it became a place of joy where everyone could participate with different levels of sort of mental capabilities, and physical capabilities as well, of course. And it became such a success that they ended up singing with choirs in schools and the Royal Albert Hall. So it's a really heartwarming story. And she's not telling it just to warm our hearts, which I think is already a really good cause for writing a book, but actually because she thinks this is a very replicable model that can be used in other elderly homes.
Wow. And what a story, to go from just, from sort of the ground level up and to end up in the sort of Royal Albert Hall is just an incredible story, and one that needs to be told as well. And like you say, heartwarming, interesting probably, and just demonstrating the sort of passion that she had. So I love that. I mean, what's not to like about those kind of stories? We all like to be motivated and we like to be uplifted, don't we, with our reading? So what I want to do, Rutger, is we're going to go to a break. I want to come back, and because a lot of people will be like, oh, that's just about writing a book, but what is that? How does that relate to me? So I'd love to talk about what you do at Story Terrace and how you make this happen for people who have a passion or a desire to actually write their own story. So let's pop to a break and come back in a minute. So welcome back. Thank you so much, Rutger, for sharing those stories. I feel like I want to go out and buy them and read those stories myself, because I just love a nice transformational, uplifting story. Story Terrace. So you had this idea years ago. You've done 10 years of this. You've released 4,000 books. You know, I've talked about my dad's, my father-in-law's. Also, one of my clients, I suggested to him a few years ago that he had a big story to tell. Now, he ended up writing, I think he said, 150,000 word book, which is it's probably a little bit more expansive than your normal offering at Story Terrace, but he's been doing that for years. And so, but he has got a medical background, so it's kind of part memoir, part information. So he's very, very proud of it. But how do people make this happen? Tell me about Story Terrace. Tell me about what you do and how it all works. So if somebody's like, oh my word, I would love to do that. What can they expect?
Yes. The core of what we do is we basically help people to tell their story, and we do that with two primary instruments. One is a questionnaire to help people prepare for their interviews. Just they can do that in their own time. They can either just read it and bring back some memories and start thinking about the most important things they want to talk about, or they can write lots of it. We see both, and both works. Both is fine. Because both these ways prepares them for the interviews, which is at the core of all of the different products that we have, and different ways we create books for people, is interviews with professional writers. And we match people with a professional writer, and they're being interviewed between 4 to 10 hours about their life. From that, we create an outline of the book, which is normally around 8 to 10 chapters. There's a number of bullet points to explain which topics, which anecdotes, which turning points are coming back in those chapters. There's obviously room to revise those. From there, we write the first chapter to make sure we get the style right, and then from there the whole book. People can add photos. We print. We help people to self-publish their books as well. Basically, to make sure that everything happens from A to Z, because the book creation process, as you know, Lesley, is a long process with many different steps, and we do everything in-house so that there's no room for not getting to the end of that process.
Oh, yeah, and you know, obviously I went through that, and I'm trying to think how long it took. I can't remember, like 4 to 6 months, would you say? I can't remember. I can't remember now because it's like 3 years ago. What would you expect that would take in terms of time scale?
Yeah, on an average plan is 7 months
Okay.
for our books, and that includes getting the photos in the right place, coming up with the title. Sometimes people are needing to find that last photo that they know that they have somewhere. So it's that is what we aim for. We don't like to go over 9 months because it's also good to have sort of a confined space. And for some people, sometimes for medical reasons, we accelerate that process significantly. We can do it as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, from my experience, it never felt rushed. It felt nicely paced as well. So it's all done in a nicely paced way. But I know we spoke about this on the last podcast a little bit, but I know that you've brought something else in. So what you've seen is that some of it, there's a cost associated with this, right, Rutger? We're going to put all of the details of that in the show notes. And so if you're interested in this, then I'm sure Rutger will share where you can find information on their website. We'll have it on our show notes as well. But when we were talking to you a couple of weeks ago, you told us that you've got a different product now that you've brought into the mix. And so tell us about that, because it uses the lovely AI. So let's dive into that, and whether that's something that people are going to love it or loathe it. AI is here to stay, right?
Definitely. And AI in writing is huge, and in translation. So everything related to writing and editing, which doesn't mean there isn't room for for people to add significant value. But when we spoke 3 years ago, AI was not a buzzword yet. It was not something that was working for creating a new product, because when AI started working and transcripts became better, AI was able to really use the stories that were coming from different times and create them chronologically, find themes, etc. We started working with that and experiment. That has led to our Swift product, which is where our clients are still being interviewed by professional writers about their life. But we use AI to generate the outline, and clients can edit it themselves rather than professional doing that. The same with the following stages of the process where we create the full draft. We still design the books using all their photos. So we still go from A to Z. There's just a bit less human involvement, which brings the cost down significantly of the product. It also goes quicker sometimes. So that's why we call this Swift, because there are a bit less steps. Generally, our clients spend a little bit more time on that product because there's a little bit more to finesse about the text than when a professional writer has delivered that text.
I think because obviously most small businesses now are embracing looking at AI, looking at where it can be used in their business to save time, really, to kind of then spend time on the things that matter and not the things that are, writing matters. But I think, for us, it's interesting for us that we're using a little bit of AI in the business here and there, is that we have so much that we have spoken about that's out there in transcript format that we can ask AI to look at what we have written and then give us structure, give us summaries, give us ideas. And so whenever we use AI, we always say, we don't want you to just go and find it from anybody, anywhere. We want you to use our stuff. And then we come back, then it comes up with a structure, then we refine it into our voice if it's not. But to be fair, AI does a very good job when it's looking through transcripts to find your voice as well. Of course, there are things that need to be changed. But I think that's and with what you're talking about, you're talking about those interviews happening. So that is coming from the voice of the
so
person.
It's still the real source.
So they are, yeah, exactly. So it's the same sort of thing. And I think that's the key, isn't it? Because we can get AI to write things from scratch. We've all heard about people writing dissertations and things like that and just grabbing it from anywhere. It needs to be our stuff. And this is absolutely like we're using it for our stuff. We don't use it all the time, and we do absolutely finesse it. So I don't want anybody to think that we're using AI. And AI was not used in my book at all. I hasten to add. I kind of wish I'd got rid of it 2 years ago. Might have been easier. But yeah. So I think that, and I think it's a little bit scary because people feel like potentially with AI they lose control. And in some ways, my take on it is that you get more control because you've got more time to spend finessing it rather than going from scratch. I don't know whether that's your experience.
Yes, I mean, so with us, it's exactly as you say. We don't use any external sources when we write the outline or the draft of the book. It's only the interviews that are being used. And yes, AI can sometimes misinterpret a word or bring the wrong association, which is why our process works the way it works, where there's human checks and whether that human, has the opportunity to change the book in any way they want, but it means that they can spend more time thinking about the creative parts of the book, coming up with interesting titles, rather than really focusing just on writing and pages. Writer's block, which is something we completely avoid.
I think it's definitely a positive from a small business perspective and a writing perspective. For me, it's definitely helping rather than hindering, because it means that I can get more content out there, really, in less time. And so, we're certainly embracing it a little bit. But as I say, because we've got so much out there already, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's our stuff's out there. We've got 370 podcasts worth of stuff to go at, really. So it's quite interesting. So let's cut to the chase here, Rutger. Let's talk about costs. And obviously these costs change. And so depending on when you listen to this podcast, this might have changed. So we've talked about a couple of different products there. I've talked about, obviously there are bespoke things. So the client that I spoke about that's written 150,000 words, obviously that price is kind of TBC, depending on what he chooses. Very bespoke package. But in general, so something like my dad's, my father-in-law's, or indeed the Swift package, how much can people expect to pay for that?
Yeah, so the Swift package is $9.99 in pounds and $11.99 in dollars.
Right.
For our classic packages, which is what your father and father-in-law used as a process, it is a few £1,000s. We have different lengths of books. We have a few different levels of writers. So there's some options which are most easily found on the website, but just to give you a sense of the difference in pricing there.
Yeah, and I think, that's it. All of a sudden, because for a lot of people to spend a few £1,000s is kind of out of budget. But, like I was chatting to one of your colleagues last week and saying, all of a sudden for £1,000 or $9.99 or $1,200, that's a lovely gift for a family to club together to capture, to say, right, let's put, depending on how many people in the family, it might even be £100 or £200 each or something, to sort of club together to get someone to do that, to create a gift for the whole family. I mean, how lovely is that? Forget about the whole nonsensical gifts that we're giving at Christmas. Let's create something that really matters and split it amongst the family. So that makes things very affordable, and I think, and it is ultimately, this is about a long-term legacy for future generations, which is lovely. And it is priceless compared to other things, stuff that we have. So I was really interested to know about that Swift package, because I felt that it's out of a lot of people's range to go to a few £1,000s, but that Swift package, with the way that you do it with AI and things like that, absolutely brings it much more, it brings it into the realms of possibility for a lot of people, a lot more people then. So absolutely love that. All the details of that pricing is going to be in our show notes. And the fantastic news is that Rutger has given us an additional Declutter Hub discount, which we love. So instead of £999, it's going to go down to by £200. So £200, got that right, haven't I, Rutger? £200 off.
Correct.
For in pounds, and $250 if you are paying in dollars. So absolutely fantastic news. That makes it even more affordable. Now, that is a fantastic Christmas gift for somebody. Might not get your book by Christmas, but you can certainly make that gift by Christmas. So do check it out, because it's, I've got personal experience of it 3 times now, 1 with a client and 2 with my dad and my father-in-law. I can wholeheartedly recommend it. So I just wanted to say that. So, Rutger, is there anything that you'd like to finish on? Tell us what what you found over the years is the most important thing for people preserving legacy through storytelling.
Ultimately, what's really, really important, people, is generally to be honest. I feel like they often tell much more than they planned, because those things that we spoke about in the beginning, why people are a little bit nervous going into the process, they generally throw that overboard because they feel, this is the one opportunity they have to tell a story, which is why I love to ask people like yourself who've gone through the process with a family member, did you learn something new? And the answer is always yes. And it fascinates me, because these are people we know really well. So yeah, it's a very unique thing, and it's something that's we love it when we hear 5 years later from someone, to hear how much the book means to them. It's great when we hear it the day it comes out, but it makes it even more special. And I think that's just a product, which is why I'm also very excited that we have this new product with AI, because the ultimate goal of the company is to make it accessible to so many more people to have a book written than it used to be. And this has made a big difference in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And I think to experience that feeling of, yes, it's about creating a legacy for other people. But I think, for my dad and my father-in-law, it's really about them feeling proud of their life and having an opportunity to reflect on it a little bit and look at the positive sides of it. So it was a really enriching process for them. So thank you so much to your writers who did that for them, who were absolutely fab. So thank you so much for coming back onto the podcast today, Rutger. If anybody's got any questions, where can they find out more? Obviously, you've got your website, that will have all of the details of all of the things that we've spoken about. So where can people find you?
StoryTerrace.com is really the easiest place to go. We're also on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. but probably the website has the most information.
Fantastic. So listeners, have a think over the weekend. What would your book be? Have you got a book in you? What stories would you love to preserve? You might even want to start this weekend by starting to record yourself, start to record or write down some of those stories for yourself. And don't forget, of course, we've got all of the details of everything that we've spoken about today in the show notes at declutterhub.com/374. So thank you so much for listening, and we will see you all next week.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.